Sorry. Okay. So yeah, I'm recording now. Forgive me. Forgive me. So next week Saturday will be where we'll now do prototyping. So prototyping will be more or less how each screen relates to each other. So you can create interactions like let me see. So you can create interactions like when someone clicks a button, it should do this, or when someone swipes, it should do this also. So let's start with the first advanced feature. Okay, so remember we said when you want to, it's not really an advanced feature, it's just something that is built into Figma. So the first thing is, okay, let me cancel. We said we want to create a frame. You can use A or F, and a frame is similar to an artboard. So we can always click that and then we can choose a frame. So let's say we are sticking with the iPhone, okay? We said you can always double click it, or you can come here to click and rename. So let's just call it phone 1, for example, okay? And then we have content, okay? So let's just use the rectangle. Let's draw some, some shapes. Let's say the first shape, and then we have another shape, and then we have maybe a third shape, right? Okay. So by default, most times Figma tends to take that shape outside of the frame. So to put it back within the frame but clip it as well, you go back to the shape and then you more or less drag it down into the frame. So that way it's clipped to the frame. But another thing to pick up on Figma, normally XD has one wonderful feature like that we call repeat grid, where I can create one shape and then I use repeat grid to create that shape multiple times. But for Figma, it's sort of different, okay? So for Figma, you would have to more or less duplicate the shape first. So let's say we've created this, and then I hold down alternate and my mouse to duplicate the shape, okay? If I press Ctrl D, it does it for me that way. So if I keep on doing that, it keeps on doing it. So that's one of the tricks or one of the basic advanced features. But then again, we see that that shape has disappeared sort of. So we can always stretch our artboard. So that's the next tip. We can stretch our artboard, and if we stretch all the way down, we can see every other shape. So this plays out well when you are viewing, okay? So let's go ahead and let's preview, okay? So most times it plays out well when you are more or less previewing the design. Why is it taking too long? Why is it taking too long? Okay, no worries, loading. Okay, so when we are previewing, you now get the option to perform a basic interaction. So you can see you can actually swipe. You just hold down your mouse and then, okay, so that's one of the features, meaning you can actually create your artboard at the basic size, and then when you stretch it out, every content that is beneath can actually be looked at by you just swiping up and down. Okay, so that's the first feature. Okay, so let's discard all that and let's pick another frame. Okay, so for this next frame, I'll prefer to use let me use a desktop size, maybe a MacBook. Yeah, okay. And we're going to discuss the pen tool now. Okay, so don't be scared of the pen tool. Think of the pen tool as a tool that allows you to create custom shapes. Okay, so things that you would otherwise not be able to create with a rectangle, things like rectangles and triangles and circles are created for you by default. Okay, you can make those ones easily by just picking one of them here. Whereas you might want to create a custom shape, like a custom part or something for your design. That is where the pen tool comes in, okay? So the pen tool works in series of parts, okay? So where you start from, let's say I start from here. I can pick and draw a straight line towards this point. But when I click, I now have the option to either, go down or go up, okay? This is the power of the pen tool. So the pen tool tends to allow you skew your shape. So if I go left, okay, and down, it does this. If I go up and to the right, I get this kind of, curve, bezier at the bottom. If I let go and I come down, I can still achieve something from that. And then if I decide to, sorry, I decide to come in here, and then at the end, when it meets at this part, you've more or less created a custom shape, sort of. If you hit done, you have a shape that you can now actually perform actions. So I can decide to fill it up. Okay, I can decide to make it full red. And remember, we said sometimes Figma takes things outside the artboard, so you can always just bring it in, and it's more or less inside your artboard now. I have this problem with Figma a lot. I have a lot with Figma. I don't know. They may fix it soon, but it's a wonderful tool. Don't be put off by that. It's a really wonderful tool, because most of the time you collaborate with people when you design, so you will need those features. So like this, we have a custom shape. I can stretch it, I can skew it, I can make it whatever I want. Okay, the pen tool is wonderful for that. Like this, I can even have, this can become a custom header for my, website or something. I can even take it up and turn it into a gradient. We'll talk on gradients, soon, how to create gradients. Okay, so it's more or less a powerful tool to create shapes, custom shapes that you otherwise won't be able to make, with the basic shapes. Okay, another use for the pen to most likely be for icons. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's create some icons. Okay, why not? Okay, so let's say we want to create a message icon. Okay, there are ways around this. You can always just pick your rectangle and draw out, not so perfect rectangle. So I can say maybe it's 120 for the width and maybe 74 for the height. Okay, and then I can give it a stroke and turn off the fill. So I can make the stroke maybe 3. Okay, and then it's a rectangle, but I want a message, icon. So I can just pick up my pen to come to the edge here. So if you hold down Shift, okay, if you hold down Shift, it draws it, in a diagonal line for you. But I'm comfortable with going freehand, so I can pick the center, and then this is not good. Okay, not great still. But when you hit done, you more or less have that shape, but you can always come in and edit. That's the power of the pen tool. So I can always come in and center it sort of. I hit done, okay. I can make it the same, and we have a mail icon. Okay, so you can actually use the pen tool to create custom icons. Okay. You can create a lot of things with the pen tool. It's more or less creating custom shapes, okay, things that you otherwise not be able to do. Can only learn the basics, which is just the directions. Okay, so you start at a point, you pick the next point, and then you decide how much curve you want based on what you are doing. Okay, so you can have, even when you are done, you can come in and you be like, oh, you want another point here. Okay, you can always create that. So it's a tool you would have to play around with yourself. You may not use it all the time. You may just use it at particular points when you need to make maybe fine adjustments on particular points. But it's a wonderful tool. It's a very wonderful tool. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk on is Boolean operations. Okay, so Boolean operations are more or less used to create also custom shapes. Okay, but you can only use it on you can use it on both the pen tool, shapes you made with the pen tool, and with the built-in shapes. Okay, so by default, Figma doesn't offer it up to you unless you have multiple shapes selected. Okay, so let's pick the rectangle now. Okay, and let's make one rectangle, and let's pick the circle. Sorry, I'm using shortcuts. So O is for the circle, and then R is for the rectangle. So if you hover on this, you see the shortcut keys attached to each shape. O is for your ellipse, R is for your rectangle. So I picked these shapes. Okay, let me just pick square. Let me see, 200, 200. Okay, and then I want to create some sort of custom shape from this. Okay, if I pick this and I also select, so to select multiple items, you hold down your shift key and click on both of them. By default, Figma offers me this. This is the Boolean operation now. Okay, so the Boolean operation can allow me to perform union, subtractions, intersections, and I can exclude a selection. Okay, so if I do the union, it joins everything together. Okay, so this now becomes one shape. As a result, I can make it whatever I want. I can paint it whatever color I want it to be. Okay. The next option is to subtract. So what it does is it subtracts what is on top or at the bottom, okay, from what is on top. Okay, so if I
take my biro.
Okay.
Bring my pen.
Okay, who do I need? How am I to mute? Okay, please. Okay, so it subtracts what is at the bottom from what is at the top. So if I do subtract now, you see the circle was at the bottom. Okay, let me make it much more obvious. So let me paint the. Let me paint. Okay, so it's what is at the top. I subtracted from what's at the bottom. Yeah. So subtract what is at the top from what is at the bottom. Okay. Okay, so if I do a subtraction, what is at the top gets subtracted from what is at the bottom. So if I take the square, okay, and I bring it forward, so you can do control right bracket, or okay, and then you can bring it forward. But because it's sometimes the shortcut keys clash with your browser, okay, so I would advise most times you just get the app. Okay, the app is still the same thing. It's just that the app is now, those shortcut keys tend to be much more consistent on the app, because if I do the command brackets, it tends to push me to another tab. Okay, so it's that's one thing to also note. Okay, but if you have the app, you won't have those problems. So you see now, because the rectangle was the square was on top, it subtracted it from the circle. So, and you can use this to create some kind of interesting designs. But look at now, I take this rectangle and I fit it perfectly at an angle, and if I use the Boolean operation to subtract, I get this kind of nice looking Pac-Man. Who has played Pac-Man? Pac-Man is a classic. Okay, sorry, I'm getting carried away. So that's what Boolean operations can do for you. Okay. So if you're after creating custom shapes, or custom let's say custom objects or custom vectors that you are sure that your basic shapes can give you, okay, use the Boolean operators. Okay, But if it's something that you know, okay, definitely you cannot achieve with Boolean operations or with custom shapes, okay, you tend to use pen tool for that. Okay, and sometimes some designs can actually be, many designs can, or many custom illustrations can actually be achieved with Boolean operations. Okay, it's actually very, very possible. So it's a matter of trying it out. Boolean operations were majorly what we used before the pen tool. So it's still very, very, very powerful. You can actually achieve a lot with it. Okay, so let's move into the search feature. Okay, so now Figma has a very, very powerful feature. So if all else fails, if you get lost, okay, there's one very powerful feature. You can use command or control / and it brings up the search feature. So you can always search for anything, anything at all. Everything within Figma is searchable. That's a very wonderful feature. So you can search for the rectangle, you can search for even the union, okay? So, and those that have shortcuts, it can give it to you. So that way you can also even find, the shortcuts while you are working. So it's not really an advanced feature, but it's a feature people don't make use of most of the times. Okay, so when you sort of get stuck and you are not really sure where you would find that feature, just do a control / or the command / on the Mac, and then you see the search feature and you can search for that as well. Okay. So let's jump into components. Okay, so components is like the next main thing. Okay, so think of components as styles that you carry through your entire design. Okay, remember we said when you are designing you should be consistent. Okay, so components sort of help you to maintain that level of consistency when you design. Okay, so let's just dive right in. Let me not explain too much while we are doing a live design class. So let me explain. So for this, let me delete this artboard and let me create another page and let me name this page components. Okay. Now I don't need to name it components, but very soon you understand why I'm naming this page components. Okay. So let me make this page 1. Okay. So now on this, so remember we said pages allow you to create separate documents. Okay. So you can have this page as maybe your web version. You can have another page as your mobile version. You can have a third page for your, for your tablet version and the likes. Okay. So now we're creating this so that we can have our components here, which we can in turn use for, let's say our design. Okay. So let me just pick a frame again. Okay. And let me use the iPhone. Okay. So let me create a button. Okay. So I come in here, I pick my rectangle, and then let me create one. Okay, hold on. Let me use my grid. Okay. So we use the column grid and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 20. Let me center the grid and let me do 50. Let me do 50. Yep. Yikes. Yeah. Okay. So now I want this to go from this end of the grid to this end. Okay. And then I would want it to maybe be 60 as the height. Okay. So now by default, we have our so-called button, right? And then let me give it a color. Okay. Sorry, I'll use one of my favorite colors again. so I give it the color. Maybe for this to stand out a little more, let me make this to my grid. Okay. Okay, so I come in, I add a text of sign up or something. Okay, let me do the sign in. So I'm on Poppins. Let me use Poppins. Let me make this maybe 14. Okay, and then okay. So by default, we've created this button. Okay. So and if you hold down alternate, you can more or less see, you know, the distance between the object that has been selected and everything around it. So that way you can actually be sure of if it is perfectly centered. So this is perfectly centered, but it's off a little. So I can just pick the rectangle and then, you know, make it 250, right? So, you know, that way, no, sorry, not the width, I mean the height. Okay, so this is 150, 150. So the height is off by 1. So I can do 61. Okay, just so that we can achieve this perfect. Okay, so it's perfectly centered now, right? So I can now pick these two. Okay, now let's add more. Let's add more. Let's make it rounded. Okay, let's make it rounded angles of maybe 5, okay, or 10. Why not make it 10? Okay, let's add some effects. Okay, let's give it a drop shadow. Okay, and we might as well go for the same yellow color we used and tone it down to maybe 40. And then we can do a 6 on the x-axis and a 6 on the y-axis. Okay, so ideally you won't use this kind of button in your design. Okay, you know, but just for the sake of emphasis. So now I can group now. To group, you use Control G or Command G, or you can always right click and then you should see the group option. I think never used it, so I don't even know where it is. It's, okay, yeah, group selection. So it is Control G or Command G. Okay. So I pick the two and then I group it. Now I have this. I can now come to my layers. Remember, I said it's always nice to rename your thing. Okay. So I can call this primary button. Okay. Okay. So this is a primary button. Okay. So like this now, I can now use Command D to duplicate. Okay. And then I can duplicate again. I can duplicate again. So I can come in here and start editing this other designs. And I can call this, let me know, it's perfect black, 1D, 1D, 1D. And then I can make this the same yellow, okay? And I can decide, okay, I don't want any effect on this rectangle, okay? So I can delete the drop shadow on this, okay? I can also come in here and then pick, okay, let me change this name to secondary. Don't worry, you understand components. We're just creating stuff. Don't worry, you understand components. So let me delete one button and let me just keep one. Okay, and then let me make this purple color. Let me drop you. And then let me make the text white. Okay, and then we don't want a drop shadow for this. So let's name this our tertiary button. Okay, so now we have all these. Let me just take them out of the frame. Okay, so I can pick this and then because it's already grouped, I come up here and then I create a component. Okay, now you see this 4 diamonds around the group. That tells you that is the primary component. That's the master component. Okay. So I come here and I pick this as well. I make it another component and I make this another component. Okay. Now, if I come into page 2, okay, I can dive into my assets and you can see this components, these buttons already created. Okay. So here I can just pick a frame. Okay. Let's go back to my iPhone frame. And this is where I'm now doing my actual design. Okay. You know, and then maybe I have my my text that says, you know, to the app or something, okay? And then maybe I'm making this 32, okay? Yeah, yeah. So maybe I'm making this 32, and then I'm having a smaller text around it. So let me just do Laram. Don't mind me. So we'll touch on plugins towards the end. So yeah, maybe I'm just using Laram, and then I generate 20 words, and then I make this maybe 12. Okay, let me make this 12, and then I make it a light color, sort of. Okay, I drag towards the end. Okay, now we have these two. Okay, maybe I'll center them. Okay, and then I'll also center the welcome to the app. Okay, okay. Let me center this as well. Okay, so I bring this maybe towards the center, and then I want the user to sign in. Okay, and I've created my button for that. All I do is navigate to my assets page, and this is our primary button. All I do is drag and drop. Okay, so this is where components comes in now. I don't need to recreate this button every single time I would want to use this button. Okay, which is where components helps to make your design more or less look the same, you know, make it consistent, okay? Because definitely it's difficult to remake that button, okay? I'm not saying you can't remake that button, okay? But you know, sometimes you are short on time, sometimes you don't have enough time to, you know, look at the work thoroughly, you know. So when you spend time creating your components, you know, you more or less have this consistent sizing across, you know, your application. So if I duplicate this now, okay, and then we now have more or less, let me just align all this to the left, okay. So, sorry, we're not being perfect here. Ideally, you're supposed to follow proper alignment, okay? I'm just rushing this, okay? So if I come in here and then I draw another rectangle out, okay? And I draw another rectangle, and I can use bring to front, bring to front. And I call it the username, the field as the username, and then I pick another. So let's just come inside there. So I'm very setting. Okay, and then we call this password, right? Okay, okay, and we call this password. Okay, I can come in, put this underneath. It's not perfect, we know it's not perfect, and I can delete this particular button. Okay, and then I can always come to my assets, pick this, drop this in. Okay, now let's say along the line, you discover that, oh, the people you are working with or team you are working with is, oh, this is the new color for our primary color, or this is the new color for secondary. Okay, we don't need to start going through the process of changing every single button. You're getting why components comes in now. Components allows you to have one master that controls all the, you know, the children. Okay, one master that controls all the students. So it's like the component is the sensei, and then the other ones are, you know, the students. Okay, so you come in now and they are like, oh, we're no longer doing this. You can easily pick this primary button. Okay, pick another color entirely. So let's say they are like, now it's a blue. Okay, now if I come in here, it's now a blue color. Okay, no, this has changed to blue. So if they say, oh, come back to here, and then they say, oh, the purple, the tertiary color is no longer purple, that we are now using a red. Okay, I come in and it's now a red. Okay, so components helps you to more or less speed up your workflow. Okay, so that when you are, more or less making changes to similar elements. They would look the same across the board. Okay, so you can also use components for things like icons. If your icons will repeat, if your shapes will repeat, your text fields will repeat. You can always do that. All you do is when you've created it and you are certain that that's what it will look like, you group it and then you give it a name, then you just make it a component. So now, why I created this is because you don't want to touch the primary component unless it is absolutely necessary, okay, which is why I would advise you create a separate page for your components, okay? So take, for example, I move primary and I bring it here, okay? Okay, and then by mistake, I delete it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so by mistake now, you more or less maybe delete it or you ungroup it. Okay, you make changes to this. You unlink it. Your primary is gone. Okay? Different things happen a lot to the primary components. So it's always advisable you more or less leave it in a separate page. I don't know, maybe Figma will find a workaround for it. Because in Sketch, I think in Sketch, once you create the components, they ask you, Sketch calls them symbols, okay? They ask you, do you want to send it to the symbols page? So by default, Sketch will more or less send that component or symbol. Sketch calls their own symbol. Everyone has names for them, okay? So Sketch sends it to a symbol page. So that's where everything lives. So if you delete that, it doesn't affect the child elements, but each child element is now on its own, sort of, which is what you are trying to avoid. You get, because I may leave this here and then, and I may make,
I don't boil it to 100%, but what you want.
okay, so and I may want to make changes, and then I make a mistake on the primary. That affects every other thing. So it's always advisable you create a separate page for those your components. Okay, so I think something has even gone wrong already. So you're seeing now. So you can see, so it's more or less advisable for you to, keep your components all in one place. Okay, so that you don't, what do they call it? Avoid stories that touch. Okay, so again, we said other things can work as components. Okay, so I can okay, and we can just create an icon. Okay, so let's say we want to create maybe a clock. Okay, so maybe a clock. You can come in here. I can pick the pen tool and then I can draw just a straight line that cuts this way. Okay, it's okay, and then let's make this maybe a stroke of 5, and let's make this a stroke of maybe 3. Okay, so that's basically a simple clock. Okay, let me just, okay, and then I can group it and then bam, it's a component. Okay, I can name it clock. Okay, so I come into my page and then I want that to come in. I just bring it in. Okay, and then I can resize and scale to whatever I want, but anytime I come in here, it's still the same. Okay, it remains the same. Okay, so you can also overwrite, because you might be wondering, okay, can I overwrite a component? Yes, it's very, very possible. You can always do that. Okay, so I can always come in here and then pick the text. Okay, and then I can readjust and align every other thing. So it's not reliant on that your text should be exactly the same, because if you come in here now, it's still signing that is showing as the primary component. Okay, so you can override things like text. You can even go ahead and override things like color. So if you just right click, you can, I think you would see detach instance. Okay, so when you detach instance, you are no longer relating the two files together. Okay, so this is now on its own. Okay, when you do that, if I now come in and I say, oh, it's no longer red, it is, let's make it green. Okay, by the time I come in here, you are seeing it's no longer, taking effect on this. So components help you speed up your work generally. Okay, it's a very, very wonderful thing. So if you are starting out a project, it's always nice. If if it's something that is going to be a very, very large project, okay, just lay out all your components so that once you start designing, it's effortless. Because you already know that every single size is accurate, every single color is accurate. Every single variation is accurate. Okay. So that's about components. Okay, we've done the pen, we've done components, we've done Boolean. Sorry, I'm looking at my list too. And then, okay, so let's talk on color styles. Okay, so yes, we have a project we want to work on. Okay, so definitely we would have picked out colors, right? So let me just come back here. Let me just pick out some colors. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So let's say we are going for a particular shade of black. Remember, pure black is not always good for reading. Okay. So attempt to go for things like 111, okay, or things like 313131, okay, or things like 333, okay. They are really nice shades of, they are not completely black and they are not completely gray, okay. So we can say this is the color that we want to be our text, okay. So let's say our primary color is a blue, okay. So I think I'm even liking this blue we used here, okay. And then we have maybe a light shade of red, okay, as maybe our first accent color. And then we have maybe a butter, yellow, not to, as second accent color. Okay, so we have our text color, right? We have our blue as our primary color. Then we have our pinkish red, okay, and our butter yellow, sort of, okay. So maybe we should add one more, even though we're not supposed to. Most times you don't need to add, white, but let's just add white, okay, and then let's just give it a stroke, okay, just to be sure that. So now color styles is more or less variation of components. I won't say it's components, okay, but it allows you to be able to apply colors to things faster, okay, instead of you having to, struggle with the whole color picker or remembering the color codes or all of those kinds of things. So I picked this now, and you see this style thing, like 4 boxes separated evenly, close to the plus. If I click on that, okay, don't mind me, I have so many colors here. You can actually do what we call create new style, okay? So when you click create new style, you can now name it to whatever you want it to be. Now, keep in mind that this color will be made specifically for that project you are working on, okay, which is the unique aspect about it. And more or less, you can use these colors you can even import them into another project later on, which is why Figma is nice. Most of your files talk with each other, okay. So if we call this text color, okay, we have that, okay. I pick the next and I create new style. I can call it primary, okay. So this is our primary color. I can call it 60, okay. I'll explain why I called it 60. It's up to you, okay. It's not like so then we can call this Okay, secondary color. Okay, and then we call this 30. Then we have the third one. So I can call this tertiary color. Okay.
So you can't even save all of them at the same time. It was.
I've not tried. I've actually not tried. Funny enough. Okay, let's try. You learn everything. Let's try. Okay. Nah, I don't think it's possible.
It's possible.
Okay. So white is white. I don't know why I'm adding it again, but okay, let me just call it white. Okay. So now I'm just doing this on the components page to show you that it's always nice to more or less organize your work. So, you would want all the rough work to be in one place and then every other thing that plays out well to be in another place. So most times my projects will have components, would have wireframes and then the actual designs, okay, which is how I like to roll. But it's up to you. No one can impose anything on you. There are great designers that their entire artboard is messed up. Okay, so it's what works for you. So now we are in, and I'm like, okay, let's begin. Okay, we chose pure black here, but remember we said it's not always nice to use pure black. Okay, it's difficult to actually focus on. So it's advisable to use a lighter shade of black or a darker shade of gray. So I picked this now, and I want to change the color. Instead of coming and fiddling with the color picker and all, I can just click in and click on local colors. Ideally, you would just see document colors and local colors. Okay, I have a lot of colors, so I have other things here. But once you click on local colors, you would see those colors you created specifically for this document. Okay, so which means we can pick that our light gray or our dark gray or our light black, and it changes those colors for us. Okay, the same thing I can apply to my text here. Okay, and then that's it. So maybe I want to unlink this button now. Okay. Okay. So I can just detach instance. Okay. So I can pick the button, just the rectangle, and then I can say, oh, I want to use this new blue. Okay. Okay. Still the same blue. Let's go with our pink. Okay. Let me remove the drop shadow. Okay. And then we can always go back and pick our whites. Okay. So this is when you've already picked out colors. Remember when we talked about colors, I've shown you how you can even generate, nice colors for yourself, using, some of the, the color theories, or if they are lazy like me, most times you can just use one of the color generators like colors and the likes, So, I can come in here and I want this to be the blue. Okay. So I pick the blue. Okay. And then I can, yeah. So I can now be like, oh, I want this to be, black instead of white, So it's, that's what, color styles does for you. Okay. So it speeds up your work when it comes to color. So you can just pick out your colors, and then, you can, once you start design, you are done with your wireframes, and then you start, applying color and pictures, it just makes it very fast. So instead of you, going, typing in the color code all over and over again, okay, it sets it for you. And it also helps when you are doing a developer handoff, okay. So when the developer, more or less takes your Figma file and they are ready to use it, they already know what colors you are using, okay? Because in many cases, when you come in here to select and you come back to maybe documents, you are seeing so many things, even colors that you are no longer using again, okay? This just, brings in so many other things. We're using green before, but, I don't know where the green is now, you get. So it's advisable to just set your local styles for your colors. So that way you don't have issues. So why I did okay. So why I named them
Okay.
okay. So why I named it 60-30-10 is because we have what we call the golden ratio in color, okay, where we say your primary color should be 60% and then your secondary color should be 30%, and then you have your tertiary color to be 10. Okay. So that's why I set it that way. So now your tertiary color will be more or less things like uh, your buttons, your highlights, and the likes. So your secondary will now come in for maybe headings and the others, and then your primary will be what will drive many of the interactions, like maybe your illustrations and many of those other things. Okay. So that's why it's good to always pick out good colors when you are, doing all of that. So we're done with color styles. So let me touch this slice tool quickly. Okay. So this slice tool, how do I even explain the slice tool? You may not really use the slice tool most times. Okay. The slice tool came from Sketch. Okay. So okay. Let me just do something real quick. Okay. So let me bring in an image. Okay, so don't worry, we'll touch on plugins. It's a plugin I'm using now. So it's let me look for animal. So okay. So let's say I like this animal now, and I brought in the animal into the design. Okay. Let me just try this out a little. Okay. No, but I want a certain portion of this picture. I don't want the entire picture. Okay. So I can, sorry. Where is my slice tool again? Okay. Yeah. So I can come in and I can drag across this portion, which is just what I want. Okay. Select it and then I can hit export, and then you see export slice. Okay. So if I export this, let me just do a preview. You notice that okay, it's that portion I selected within the image that is showing as the preview for me to export. Okay. That's basically the slice tool. Okay. But the beautiful thing about the slice tool is that if it is a vector, or if it's an image or whatever, it will export it that way. So I can even slice out vectors, okay, so that way when I'm exporting, if I want to perform some certain type of animation, okay, or the likes, it will help me. So let me use another plugin to explain that. So let me use Blush, okay. So Blush is a wonderful plugin, okay. So you might be looking for how do you get nice illustrations or things that look beautiful and the likes. Blush can help you get that. Why is it taking so long to load now? Okay, let me try that again. Okay, so Blush can actually help you get good illustrations.
It's not working.
Not working. It's not working. Okay, let me see. Do I have any other plugin for illustration? Yeah, humans. Yes. Let me see. Yeah. So, let me take this. Okay, humans does this every time. Selected the box. Use the box. Okay. 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 So there I just use the control full stop. You can go into full screen mode, meaning you won't interact with any of the tools. So it's okay. Oh, don't worry. survive. Humans does this all the time. Okay. So let me just take this out and then let me paste it here. Okay. So no, this is more or less an illustration. So this is a vector file, meaning if I scale it infinitely, it will remain the same. Okay, see, I keep zooming in and the lines are still very clean. Okay, which is why it's always advisable to use, vectors. Okay, there are situations where you will need pictures. Okay, so don't mistake replacing pictures with vectors. Okay, there are situations where you need pictures. When you are depicting actual products. When you are trying to show human interaction and all of that. Okay, so you would actually need pictures for that. But illustrations help a lot because the illustrations are more or less very friendly. Illustration is even another topic on its own for design. Okay, so you can bring in illustrations to depict certain things, in a friendly manner. Okay, which otherwise you may not be able to do with pictures. So let's say for the slice tool, I want to use the slice tool here now. Okay, because now I can always dig into this layer by layer and then start selecting and then saying I want to export this or that. It's very possible. Okay, but if you are pressed for time, you can always just come in and be like, okay, you want to animate your design in a way that the hair is moving or something. I can always just, sorry, I keep forgetting where the slice tool is. Okay, yeah. So I can always, that's because I don't usually use the slice tool, don't mind me. So I can always just come in here and pick, okay, maybe the hair, and then scale this in a little, okay, okay. And then when I say export, okay, that comes off as the only thing I will export, okay? And I can just pick SVG as the format and pick export. So SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic, meaning it's also a vector file. So irrespective of the size, it will be clear, okay? And SVGs tend to work very well with websites and mobile applications. So that way your design is crisp, okay? So it's not that it's very blurry or something, okay? So it will maintain, the picture quality irrespective of the size. So if they become smaller, it's still clear. If they become bigger, it's still very clear. So which is why it's also advisable to export SVGs. So I can pick this, select that slice, export it, draw out another slice on another portion of the body and still export that, and then, whoever is coding the animations will know how to bring these different things together in keyframes and then simulate an animation from it. That's one use case for, the slice tool. Okay, so I think we're at the end. So let's just talk on plugins. Okay, so so for plugins, Figma has a lot. Okay, a lot of plugins. So once you open up Figma, by default, you would see the section for plugins. Okay, so there are a lot and they keep adding. So it's majorly up to how your workflow is. Okay, I just install and install and install and install, and then I test. If I don't like it, I delete it. So it's generally up to you. So if you come into plugins, okay, and then you browse or okay, you see a list of all the plugins. So I can show you the plugins I'm using currently. They are subject to change, so it's not standard thing that you must use the plugins I use. So these are the ones I use. I use Unsplash. Okay, Unsplash is an image service. Okay, it's a wonderful resource for finding high quality images that are copyright free. So you can use those images even up to the stage of putting a live website on or an application, and nobody is charging you for anything. Okay. Iconify is like a set of icons. Okay. Content reel. Oh my God, I don't even know what content reel is. So I'm sorry. I'm not. That's why I said I just installed. I don't know what some of them are. I just install and then I try them out. Okay, let's start trying. Let's start trying some of them out. Okay, so let me just go into my plugins. Okay, so artboard mockup. Okay, artboard mockup is a nice one. Okay, what it does for you is I think it takes, okay, yeah, you would have to go to their website and you will create a public API key. But what artboard mockup does for you is it takes what you have designed, so it pops up, like you saw, and then you pick any of your screens that you have finished, okay, and then it sort of creates this 3D mockup for you with it being inside a phone and all that you can export, okay, and use. Okay, it's a very nice plugin. Okay, another plugin. Okay, Autoflow. Which one's Autoflow? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Okay. So I think Autoflow is trying to know what it is. Okay, I think it's what you use to depict your flow of your artboards. Okay, so if you are more or less wireframing and you want to show someone, the direction of what you are doing, I think you would use Autoflow for that. Okay, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. Okay, so you can get by without some of these plugins, but the idea is that they just make life easier for you, or they make life faster for you. So the other one would be avatars. I use avatars a lot. Okay, it just generates an image for you. That's just what it does. So you create a circle, you create a rectangle, it just puts a profile image for you.
Yeah,
so yes. It's a very, very, very nice one. So instead of you looking for an image, you just just use that bit flyer. Okay. Sorry, I don't use some of these plugins. I just install like one maniac and so bit flyer. So bit flyer. Let me see. Maybe I'll just touch on the ones I actually use. Okay, let me see. Because some of them I'm just opening up for the first time, so don't mind me. So because I'm so used to not using plugins, so it's just particular ones that help. So let me just touch on the ones that I know I actually use. So there's this plugin called Laram. So Laram just generates words for you. Okay, so ideally, okay, your content strategist or someone, okay, who would have created copy would give to you and say, this is it. But in many cases, many people you will work. As I said in the early weeks of our training, that you will break many of these rules. Okay, so so many of the people you might work with may not give you content, so you will need to fill in content. Okay, so if you don't have time or energy to start thinking of what to write, you can use Laram. Okay, Laram will just generate content for you, and you're on your way. Okay, so it's also a very nice plugin. Okay, okay, Blush was disappointing me, but let me see who is going now. Okay, yeah. So Blush is a very, very wonderful plugin. Okay, Blush is actually one of the newest plugins to Figma. Okay, and you can just randomize and it will generate an illustration for you. Okay, so there are more or less endless possibilities to the kinds of illustrations you can generate with Blush. Okay, it's wonderful, and they are still adding more. Okay, so this is one illustration it just generated for me. Okay, I can randomize again and it will give me another one. Okay, so it's just an illustration generating machine. Okay, so there are lots of illustrations that you can get from Blush. It's wonderful and it's free. Okay, so it's it's a very, very nice, very, very nice plugin to have. So let's go for another one. But these are not all the plugins though. So I don't know if I have blobs now. Okay, charts. Okay, let me see. Okay, okay, then let me go with another frame, and then let me create. I've not used charts before, so let me see. Okay, I've actually not used. There are two here. Oh my god, I installed two charts. Okay, so okay, wow, okay. So okay. Oh, this will make my life easier now. I've been killing myself since. Okay, so you can actually generate charts. Okay, some are for pro. Okay, okay, this is nice. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't use Figma much. Don't mind me. So some of these things I'm just finding out now. Okay, so this is nice. Okay, you can actually generate charts. Wow. Okay, and then I think it's it's SVG. So you can actually change the colors. Okay. Wow, this is nice. Yeah. So you can always find more of these plugins. There are a lot. But I usually use avatars. I use feather icons. I love feather icons. Okay. There are a lot of icons you can actually have. Okay. So but I love the feather icons library. I think the icons are very slick. And, but there are situations where feather icons may not work for what you're doing. Okay. So if I pick this, that's the icon, I can just come in and I can scale it to what I want it to be. Okay. So there are multiple icon libraries, okay, in Figma. So it's just about browsing through the plugins, and you would find a lot of them. There. I use Laram. I use humans. Okay, there's even icons. There's Iconify. So just play around with. Okay, yeah. There's one more. I use a lot. Stack. Okay, so Stack is a simulation for a colorblind simulation. So towards the end, we'll talk on design best practices, okay, where we'll talk about accessibility. So accessibility, you can use Stack to check how accessible your design is. So let's say I draw this out, okay, and then I draw a shape out, and then I make it maybe this, and then I pick text to say okay, I'm Isaac or something, and then let's make this maybe 30. Okay. So we can actually check to know how these two play with each other using Stack. Okay. So if I use Stack check contrast, okay, so this passes. Okay. So you should always strive for a double A at least. Okay. So you can always check out their documentation. It's majorly for people who have accessibility issues, color contrast, and all of that. So even after you've selected your color palettes and all, you can always come here and check. So we can even go as far as saying, okay, let's try out our local colors now, if what we chose actually made sense. Okay. So if we come in here and then we pick, okay. So if we decide to check our contrast now using Stack, okay, we can know if we failed or we passed. Okay, so so we are good. Okay, I would say we are good. We are almost there. But we failed for normal text. Okay, so which means we'll need to maybe bump up our black a little. Okay, but for every other thing, it's readable on large text. It's readable. You get. So this helps you to more or less check, for your design for people who, you are not even really sure about, So because a lot of people have visual problems. Okay? A lot of people actually do. So this helps you to, be sure that you are designing for them as well.
No.
So it's a really nice problem. Okay, so guys, I think that's it for today's class. Okay. So I think we've learned more of the advanced features. So by next week we'll just touch on prototype. So that's how we'll link, how we'll link screens together, that kind of thing, So do we have any questions for today? System has been okay. Someone said, what shortcut am I using to creating? What are you using? Okay, you can use. Okay, yeah, someone has already answered. Oh, wonderful! Wow, I love this. Okay, how can we add? Okay, how can you add new fonts to Figma? Okay, Charlie asks, how can you add new fonts to Figma? Figma uses by default Google Fonts, okay? But if you want to access the fonts on your system, you would have to download Figma font plug. It's an extension, Sha. Once you install it on your system, it will pick it. But if you download the Figma app, you don't need to download the font, extension. You will find it on their website. Okay, it's there. So if you want to walk through your web browser, okay, you don't need to. You would need to install it. Okay, but if you are downloading the Figma app, you don't need to install it because the app comes with it. So that way, it's already reading the fonts on your system. Okay, so do we have questions? I think I can stop sharing my screen now. Okay. So do we have any questions, guys? Okay, so we should create components first before the project. Okay, Ijoma, I'm saying, all I'm saying is it's advisable, yes, okay, especially when you would have multiple instances of particular things. Like if you know you're going to use your buttons a lot, okay, if you know you're going to use particular types of icons a lot, if you know, that I think components might even apply to text, okay, if you know you're going to use a particular padding or a type of, text, size of text, it's advisable. So that way you just drag in and then make your changes. Okay. So it's nice. It's actually nice to use, those components. It makes your work faster. And as a result, it just makes everything, uniform. Because remember, your design should be consistent so that the user, feels that, okay, everything works. Okay. So try and create components, before your actual design. But if it's a small project, like it's just one screen or two screens, you don't need to. Okay. Or when you are designing a full-blown application, definitely create components. So, do you have any other questions?
Sorry.
So I think it seems like we don't have any other questions. Okay, so next week, Thursday, we'll now talk on, I think, what are we talking on? I think I'm not sure if it's prototyping or if it is design systems. Okay, so that's where we'll discuss on design systems, so we can know how to use things that have already been created for us, so that our work is much more faster. Okay, so if you are majorly maybe designing native apps for iPhones, you would see their design system or their design library, so that way you know how Apple implements buttons or how Google implements buttons and the likes. So that way your design is more or less uniform or works well for users. Then we'll do prototyping and we'll do user testing. So where I will explain how you can do user testing and the likes. So final week will now be where you'll see my face. Okay, so final week will be where we'll just have normal discussion, and then you can ask general questions relating to UI, UX. And I also share a bit of my experiences. Okay, so guys, have a wonderful weekend. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and then by next week we would meet. Okay. 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 Oh, okay. If Mama said, how do I export my design from Figma to show as the iPhone image? Oh, okay. I've not done that before, so I don't know. I actually don't know. Let me check on that for you and see if I can. If I find something for you, then I'll share it on the classroom. Okay. Okay. Okay, guys. So we'll see next week Thursday. So have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Okay. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.